So are you off vegetarianism?
Not well. It's just, I think for the world and for every individual, it's a very good and responsible thing to be in a plant-based diet. But we are in Taiwan. It's level 3 lockdown. There's so many places that are inaccessible.
Is this an
I don't
excuse
have a kitchen. It is an excuse.
for Earth?
It is an excuse. I'm just not the perfect human being.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty cool, but
yeah.
it's not perfect.
I have a coworker who said he just did he just eats dinner, like meat for dinner, and
Yeah.
like his point is like, okay, I'm cutting out half of my meat that way.
Yeah.
That's halfway to. I mean, that's doing half of the harm I would otherwise do.
Yeah.
You know, to the planet, etc.
Yeah,
right?
that works. It's cool. Because there's people that are just like all on the one side of the spectrum, and then there's people that are looking for a more balanced solution. And I think it's great. We should applause anyone that's
Any effort,
contributing.
any step you're making towards progress is
Yeah.
a little bit more of heaven in the world.
Yeah. So there's people that don't have children, there's people that don't have cars, there's people that don't buy new clothing, they're recycling constantly, there's people that abandon plastic, and then there's people that eat a 100% plant-based diet, and everybody's just doing their part. So we shouldn't be too judgmental on those that are not
Yeah.
not all the way there.
So,
it's
you know,
stupid.
I teach debate, and this is a topic that comes up a lot as like standard questions to ask, you know, elementary kids, middle school kids, or whatever, is
Yeah.
about being vegetarian or vegan, or like, you know, sometimes you get more specific, like factory farming or something.
Yeah.
And it seems like if you draw up the list of reasons to eat meat, and then the list of reasons to not eat meat, the list of reasons to eat meat is like, it's yummy, and that's the whole list. And then the list of reasons to not eat meat is endless and profound and important.
Yeah.
Right? Am I wrong
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, I think so.
Which one of these things hits you the most? Is it mostly the environmental thing, or the factory farming bit, or?
Well, for me, I think we should just try to do the best thing possible. Doesn't mean that we should aim for perfection, because in the end we're just humans. What hits me the most is, I think, climate change and the effect that the agricultural industry has on the planet in general, in terms of waste and in terms of emissions and in terms of production effort. Because there's this documentary, it's called, if I'm not mistaken, Cowspiracy, and that displays how much resources are necessary to produce 1 pound, as you guys like to call it.
Thank you. I understand this word.
We prefer kilos, but it takes a lot of resources to produce a little piece of meat. So there's a lot of water, a lot of plants being invested into the body of the cow in order to produce a little piece of meat. So if we would cut out the middleman and eat more plant-based foods, which are actually quite amazing, we'd do a better job. But the thing with, I think, eating meat is that many people are stuck in a loop, and they're so used to having that taste in their mouth. It's similar to maybe smoking cigarettes or drinking a certain brand of water, or Coca-Cola, for example.
Or other dietary addictions, like being addicted to sugar or carbs.
Yeah, exactly. And I was strictly plant-based, like 100% plant-based for 9 months. And when you're in it, you don't really miss the taste of meat too bad. It's just another thing. And then actually it's a bit disgusting when you walk past a kebab restaurant and they have this leftover meats that are basically just like compressed together onto a metal pin. It's a different thing. But then again, I definitely do not agree with vegans that are on one side of the spectrum. I really want to make that clear, because I think those people are idiots.
The vegan community gets a lot of shit for these individuals.
Yeah.
Like these few individuals create a lot of drama, a lot of chaos.
Well, to an extent, it's necessary to push the narrative, because on the flip side, if nobody makes any noise, nobody's going to change their behaviors or their ways of living. So I do see that, and I do think that it's good that those people are out there spreading that message, because they are devoted to improving this world, whether that's purely for the better of the world or to an extent for their own ego. I don't know. But yeah, with anything that requires change for the betterment of whether the society or the world in general, we need people pushing a certain narrative. Otherwise, it wouldn't be visible. It wouldn't be in our awareness.
Yep. And when you consider, like, sort of logically the implications of climate change or of factory farming, of either of those, in other words, the suffering and genocide of billions of semi-sentient animals
Yeah.
per year,
Yeah.
just as a normal thing because you want to have your burger,
Yeah.
right? When you consider that, it's like being radical really makes sense.
Yeah.
There's this Louis C.K. bit about abortion where he's really like weighing these two kind of sides of the abortion thing, and he's like for you give crap to these picketers who are standing outside of abortion clinics and saying, don't kill babies. It's like they think babies are being murdered. Like, what is the appropriate response if there's babies that are being murdered? You
Yeah.
know, not like, hey, you shouldn't murder the baby. No, like
Yeah.
maybe you should be extreme because
Yeah.
it's important. So for veganism, I mean the same thing. Like obviously this is a joke and it's from a certain perspective, but if you consider the real implications that almost no one will argue with
Yeah.
about climate change and about animal
Yeah.
suffering,
Yeah.
like what should you be except extreme? What makes sense except being extreme?
Well, I think to give a very fair answer, you should always consider an individual's position in this world, because some people have more space to make choices in, and
True.
other people are more limited. So let's say you're a student, you're on a budget, and then you go to the supermarket, and then all you can buy is instant noodles and maybe some cheap piece of meat, and then your parents basically raise you with the knowledge that you need meat in your system in order to get your protein or your iron or certain nutrients that are not available in the instant noodles they would be getting on the side. Then for that person, their choice would be limited compared to somebody that has the budget and the bandwidth to make a very responsible decision. And the same applies to people that are, let's say, living in tribes or in third world countries. Like, their amount of choice is completely different. But then also, we have different responsibilities in this life. So some people take care of other people, some people are egoistic fucks.
Yep.
And there's a whole array of different possibilities, right? But I think to an extent it's both good that the demand is rising, because that will increase the options available in the supermarket. But at the same time, I think we need to chill a little bit sometimes when it comes to the phase which we're changing. Even though some things are definitely urgent, like climate change is a very urgent thing, but we cannot expect other people to change from one day to another into a different person altogether. So I think exposure over time with like really delicious foods is a good one, because in the end we're egoistic fucks, man. Like, everybody is. So the reason why we eat is obviously to feed ourselves, but it's also because we want to have a tasty experience. Nobody gets happy about the Dutch potatoes that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So for the reference, those are potatoes boiled in water with a little bit of salt added to it, which is
Finish, that's the meal.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
boil the potatoes, put salt on it.
that's it. So
I was like, what
Yeah.
do you do afterwards? He's like, that's it, we're finished.
Yeah.
We eat it.
no, but it's the same with electrical cars, right? So like for a while, people thought electric cars to be impossible, because where would they charge the car? But now we're in a scenario where you can charge your Tesla like in multiple cities. A lot of parking lots have these charging points. So with making it easier for people to switch, and by promoting it, so like in the Netherlands, the government was giving subsidies to people that were buying Teslas, for example, were doing something in the right direction.
Even the fact that the entire concept, the entire conceit of the Tesla vehicle is to be a badass car that's really fast, that looks sexy, and plus make the price gradually go down. So it used to be $150,000, the cheapest. Soon there's going to be a $35,000 model. So to make it accessible, to make it make sense to do the right thing, to give people the correct incentive, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a dope-ass car, and I think it's the same with food. Like if we change, so my Instagram handle is soyboy_Stephan, and like soy got a really bad rap for a couple of years because people thought that men were going to grow man boobs and they were going to become very feminine due to the estrogen that's supposedly present in the soy that you put directly in, your body.
I believe this for some months, and I still don't know if it's, is it not true?
No, it's not true. Like the way estrogen is produced and absorbed in the body is completely different from what is being pushed in those narratives. And there's actually a bunch of people on YouTube, and I actually did it myself as well, that have been putting massive amounts of soy in their body for a period of time. And I can say personally, I've never had any really negative effects or any effects whatsoever. It's just another nutrition source. And if you think about it, we are animals as well, and some animals no matter if they are farm animals or whether they live in the wild, they have a very, what's the word in English? Like monotone diet. They eat the same thing over and over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If that's just what's around you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have so much choice. So sometimes we nitpick certain foods. That's like a popular thing in diet culture, where like all of a sudden the bananas are bad, and then the next thing is the grains are bad, and then the next thing the gluten is bad. And obviously there's an element of truth there, but especially with the gluten. But yeah, people tend to buy into a certain narrative, and it's the same with soy and what's the word? Estrogen.
Yeah.
Narrative.
Yeah, the thing is, I had a coach before who told me not to, a gym coach. I only had one gym coach, but that was one of his things. He was like, you know, just talking about hormone balance, like don't do it. But in any case, I'm not on the soy train, but I'm certainly not against it anymore. I eat it when it's around now.
Yeah.
So before we get into, this is the Expat podcast, and we talk about, well, being an expat. But before that, let's touch on one other hobby of yours, actually how we met. Which was talking about meditation, that you did a 10-day meditation retreat.
Right.
What, last year, 6 months ago?
It was in February. Only 4 months ago.
4 months ago.
Yeah.
And also, you've done one other one before in your life?
I did one before, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago now.
Tell me about your experience with this, or with meditation generally, or?
Well, I'm not meditating recently.
Okay, well then specifically with these retreats, because they're crazy.
That's the first thing I want to get in my mind. But yeah, the retreats are very interesting. You did one as well. You did
one,
you did one at the same center as I went to, which is actually funny, because it's definitely not the best center.
No, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, the one in Barcelona was a bit older, but it was definitely way bigger. We had so much more space, but the experience is very profound. So like normally, on a day-to-day basis, we're dealing with reality, and everything flies in different directions, and there's so much noise, so much distraction, so much responsibility that we are, to an extent, aware of. And then when you dive into quote-unquote deep meditation, which basically is what you're doing during your 10-day silent retreat, because you don't talk for 10 days, you become really aware of the amount of noise that your own mind is making. And this is just your own, let's say, source of life. In contrast to day-to-day life, you're dealing with all these other sources of information, energy, influence. So you tap into what you, to an extent, really are, if we can define it that way. So then you start to observe your breath for the first 3 days, and later that changes to the body. But in the meantime, you're so aware of every little thought and every little emotion that is basically manifesting itself inside your, what should we call it? Being? Consciousness?
Yep.
Yeah. And I actually got into it due to a friend. So we were talking about these friends that are pathological givers.
Yeah. Like so generous. Super generous people.
So I have a friend like that, and in the beginning we weren't that close, and then we grew closer over time because I did him a little favor. I picked up some papers, even though he moved out of the city, and we became really close after that. And after a while, he told me that he became a different individual after he had dedicated serious amounts of time to Vipassana meditation. So he's a bit weird as well. Like, he's Peruvian and he talks in a dramatic type of way. Like sometimes I can't fully relate to him. So I never got to understand how much time he actually like spent in the meditation center. But from what I came to understand, it has been like it came from a place where he felt lost in life, and the last resort for him was to just go all in until he came out as a changed individual.
By the way, probably not a bad idea.
If you're really lost, then probably not. But
yeah, I mean, plus this Goenka style, these retreat centers, they're free. They give you food.
Yeah.
You could literally just chill there and become enlightened.
Yeah. If that's the goal, or if that's like the desired outcome, because it's kind of weird to go in there with a desired outcome to an extent, because we're gonna get too deep there. Like
maybe we could make this whole podcast about this for sure.
Let's not go there. Okay. But anyways, I'm not enlightened, by the way, for the record. Definitely not enlightened. But I definitely came to understand myself to a much deeper degree, because I know what's going on in my body. I know what's going on in my mind. I know that every moment is constantly changing, and you might understand it from an intellectual plane, because you understand that Monday is different from Friday. But actually going through an experience that really shows you how profound the changes are makes you more I guess, mentally tough and balanced and more neutral to the changes to life. Even though, of course, they still affect me, but I can take a step back now and look at it from a higher, I don't want to say dimension, but a certain higher viewpoint.
Well, it kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah. So I'm very happy that I did it. It's also incredibly boring. I was hating my life, and I literally wanted to quit on the 9th day.
Oh, I thought about quitting every day. Probably I spent, so sitting there, you're sitting for how long? 10 hours a day or something, like an actual meditation? And I probably spend at least a solid hour every day thinking about quitting.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. And then the other things come up, that's true. Yeah. All the distractions, your stress, your everyday life, it all pops to the surface. But yeah, it's tough. But like, again, it shows you that life in general is just a constantly transforming phenomenon, because not a moment is the same. The mornings, energetically, looking at energies are so different from your afternoons and so different from your evenings.
Oh yes.
My morning meditations were insanely hard. I was hating it. I was just like sticking in there. I would even quit during the sit-down hours.
You were in the room, but maybe not.
Yeah, but I would also quit. Like even during the strong, what do they call it again?
Strong determination, right?
So, the idea, determination hours,
I only got through maybe 2 of those.
Oh, really?
You sit for an hour without moving.
Yeah.
Which is fine for 15-20 minutes, but eventually becomes really painful. It starts to really hurt. Like pick any position, it'll hurt after an hour if you don't move.
So like the first time was funny because I was in so much pain, but eventually I found a position, and the second time was actually quite easy because I picked up the old position again. So it was doable, but still in the morning it was unbearable, man. Like the twitching, the amount of energy in my body that needed to go a certain place, it was unbearable. So I would just walk out of the room. But then in the afternoon and in the evening, especially the evenings, were so blissful. They were so easy. I loved the last hour of the day, man. Like that was just like looking forward to the day being over, the work being done. And the meditation session was so smooth, usually very positive in terms of what was going through my body and the emotions I was experiencing. And I had some really beautiful experiences where like I felt like I was completely dissolving, and then my body basically was lit on fire. And it's funny to an extent as well, because the realization I had is, like we were talking about this before as well, so I'm born in a Christian family, but so not necessarily Christian, but during my moments of silence, there's literally no object altogether. So there is no sense of God or a sense of the world per se, or a sense of anything other than just pure silence and pure awareness, and that's beautiful, but you only get maybe 30 minutes.
For me, I maybe not more than
during your 10
5
days.
Oh, you're saying total, of pure being there,
of pure consciousness.
Yeah, and that's probably coming from a normal life into the 10-day retreat. It'll be like that. If you were to do a 30-day retreat, you probably get a lot more of that over time. Or if you were at the end of the course, the teacher, he recommends to spend an hour to kind of maintain the state, sort of. Probably not purely, but to hold on to your gains. 2 hours a day, a morning hour and an evening hour.
Morning session and evening hour. Yeah.
And I'm sure painfully few students do that for any amount of time, But I assume the more you do that, the more you really drop in that state as a normal thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I think to a degree it is very important that everybody should at least get some exposure to meditation. But then again, it's the same with many things. Confidence, knowing how to take care of yourself, knowing how to avoid taxes to a degree. There's so many elements that are necessary according to your viewpoint. But yeah, meditation really makes you more aware of who you are, because ultimately you're just an organism with some software running in his brain. And that's basically it. If you want to define a human being in a very simple way, that could be it. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
All right, let me see how much time we have left on this memory card / battery. Can we still talk about the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Super, we can. All right, so you're from the Netherlands.
I'm from the Netherlands.
Surprise, surprise, everyone. You live in Taiwan.
I'm stuck in Taiwan.
You're stuck in Taiwan, okay. Okay, fair enough. But you've been here for, 3 years off and on?
Oh man, it's not been 3 years yet. It's been 1.5 years now.
1.5 years, okay.
Yeah.
And how did you get from Netherlands to here? What has the journey been like?
Well, I've been avoiding the Netherlands for a long while. So I was living in Spain, then I visited my friend in London, which I just mentioned. Then I went to do some traveling in the south of Europe, southeast. I made it back to Spain. Then I moved to Berlin. I lived in Berlin for about 7-8 months. Then I went to Japan. I went to travel in Japan for 3 months, and then that was the end of 2019. I left Japan early 2020, so I thought about going to Korea, maybe Vietnam to an extent, but then I picked Taiwan because I've met some Taiwanese people abroad during my travels, and they were always very nice people. They were always cool and
They're sweethearts.
Gentle, positive. They were nice people to just either connect with or just have a brief conversation with. So I picked Taiwan and I came here, and then, well, things went really fucking bad. So the whole world transformed into this quarantine obsessed or corona obsessed world where everybody started to look out for their lives. The borders started closing down, and Taiwan has kept me safe. So again,
this is kind of a little bubble of peace. It has been, and it still is to a large extent, just a bubble of peace in the chaos of the international world at large.
Right.
Cool. So you've been to a lot of different places. Let's touch on the corona thing actually for a second. Do you remember sort of what was your experience like early 2020? What was sort of like that experience? I remember, for example, it kind of hit the U.S. before. Europe and the U.S. before here, because it only hit here a few months ago, actually. But I asked some friends there. I thought it was like not okay. There's diseases all the time. It's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. And so I asked someone to compare it to the craziest event of my life so far, internationally speaking, not personally speaking, right? Which was 9/11, right? Which was the same thing, much more local and domestic. Obviously, it's a U.S. thing, not a global thing, but still that sort of like wrecked everyone's consciousness for a minute, and it was like chaotic. For a lot of the adults in my life, right? For a minute, I was a kid, right? So I was like, it's not that crazy, and they're like, no, it's way more crazy. Like this is, the people's reaction to it, the reaction of the government, the news, and how people are feeling. Like this is way worse than 9/11. Did you have any kind of similar feeling, or what was your feeling a year ago when it?
A year ago.
Like when it was like, when the news was coming out of China.
So you mean in the beginning,
the slow roll? Exactly.
It's actually a little bit more than a year ago then, because in the beginning I think I felt very similar to you. Like, there's all these diseases popping up. So at one point it's Ebola, but it's always happening somewhere far away from where you live. So in this case, Ebola was in Africa, or malaria doesn't even happen in Europe, and I think the better parts of the US, right?
Yeah.
So it's always we have a nice saying in the Netherlands, far away from your bed type of show. So it was the same thing here, and I just decided to travel Asia, and I thought it'd be okay. And in the end, it's actually one of the better things I've done, because in Taiwan I've had all this freedom, while the rest of the world was basically hiding from the virus. So my initial response was that it was just be another thing, and that it would just like go away, or would never be as serious as it turned out to be, according to some people.
Well, even if you believe, let's take the extreme, let's say conspiracy belief, which would be maybe the virus is totally fake, and the whole thing is a social engineered project or something. That might be a sort of extreme belief. It's still a crazy experience to live through, even if it's social. It doesn't matter. Sort of what are the origins, etc. Like we all live in the same social space, so it is what it is.
Yeah, it's very interesting because in the end we have to deal with something that's, let's say it's real, and everybody has different interests to protect, but we're to an extent all treated the same way because of the protection of our next door neighbor.
This is the first time I talked about COVID on one of these podcasts.
That's cool.
Do you think I'm going to get banned from YouTube?
No, let's go deep.
Let's try to get banned from YouTube.
You get a strike first. You get like 3 strikes before you get banned, so don't worry about it.
Okay, fair enough. We can bring it in again if we need to, but so let's talk about sort of this journey, the places you've sort of experienced. Let's start with some kind of basic stuff. So differences between Taiwan and Netherlands.
So we're not going deep?
Or if you want to. I mean, okay. how do people in Netherlands feel about Corona?
Well, Dutch people are very rebellious by nature. Not as rebellious as the French, but we have a very individualistic mindset. Like we care about ourselves.
Certainly compared to Taiwan, right? If you want to compare.
Yeah, I think we're more similar to you Americans, although you guys obviously have a very different type of people in different states. That's a big...
True, we got a lot of crazy people.
Yeah, you have a lot of different people there.
Oh.
But yeah, Dutch people like to care about their own, and we're pretty individual in a sense. That's not always good. I'm not saying that's always good.
There's good and bad things about it.
Yeah, there's always good and bad things, but at least we know how to stand up for ourselves. And yeah, we're sometimes like very direct. Like actually, we're one of the most direct cultures in the world. We just.
Do you mean like personally?
Yeah, both personally, but also in other types of dealings, like.
So let's say talking about personally, like if you have a problem with someone, you just tell them. If you have a friend,
well,
you know that.
Obviously, there's a consensus. So, like the majority by culture will do that, yes. But then, obviously, there's still the more introvert and the more shy people. And
right. What people say is differences in personality are much bigger than differences between culture. So there's so much overlap between people because the differences in culture they matter, but the differences in personality are much bigger. So you'll have a huge variation even within one culture, a smaller variation between different cultures.
I think there's definitely a bigger difference in personalities than let's say in an Asian country where people are more or less, like I don't want to say they're the same, that's definitely not true, but they're more or less operating according to the culture to a degree. And I think in the Netherlands it's a bit more diverse if you look at the population in general, yeah.
Yeah. How many people are in the Netherlands?
Like right now it's like close to 18 million, but like
80?
18
million, okay.
Yeah. No, we don't fit.
Okay. I was like, jeez.
We don't fit that many people.
Y'all have been having babies.
Now the size of the Netherlands I think is slightly bigger than Taiwan, just slightly. And the population is like a little bit lower, so
5 million less.
Yeah. So it's in a way it's a bit similar to Taiwan, but then the concentration is different because we have more relatively big cities, but not like really big cities. And then in Taiwan, the main cities are basically Taipei and Kaohsiung, and Taichung sitting in the middle.
Yep.
But everything else is basically just
a lot of countryside.
Yeah.
A lot of farms.
Yeah. And then in the Netherlands, we have very little nature left. It's to an
Really?
extent that it's sad. Yeah.
That is shocking.
Yeah.
I would say if there's one thing I learned from this, that is shocking. I imagine Netherlands was like a couple towns and Amsterdam and then trees.
Oh, it is.
I thought that's what it was.
But the trees are very outnumbered. But it's true.
There's not so many trees?
There's not so many trees.
I
Well,
thought
of course,
there's all trees.
There's trees in the street, the ones that are like next to the parking lots and all that.
That's very surprising. I
that's pretty
imagine it was
nice.
mostly nature for some reason.
About the Netherlands, but it's not real nature. It's just like fake nature. It's synthetic nature, if you can call
I
it
guess,
that way.
but there must be countries nearby. Right? So I mean, like Finland is all.
Yeah, but even
trees, right?
Even Germany, like Germany has way more landmass, like way more space.
So
even though the population is 80 million.
So they just don't need to cut down all these trees because they have more space to.
Yeah.
I see.
And we have a lot of farmland, so like a lot of land has been transformed into farmland for either agriculture or for growing things and like weeds. But
yeah, I see.
Greenhouses.
I see.
Yeah, we have a lot of greenhouses. Greenhouses are cool in the Netherlands. We can grow anything inside a glass house, no matter the climate. So that's dope.
You said you've been avoiding the Netherlands for a while. There's, of course, many reasons you can do that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you like about the Netherlands that you don't have in Taiwan or in Asia?
Yeah, for sure. Like to an extent, the direct culture is quite convenient because you say what you want, and usually people are not avoiding things. So I was living in Spain for a while. And people make up all kinds of excuses not having to do the work. So they come up with a lot of bullshit, and it's just annoying to basically cut to the chase because you are at a certain place and you want something, and it's just not. The society or the people are just not collaborating with you because they're having a bad day or they're feeling.
And you have to learn how to sort of navigate your way around that kind of cultural like fog. You just things are opaque. You don't know what's happening.
So in the Netherlands, people are very straight up. They say what they want. Most people do.
Yep.
And to an extent, that helps them get what they want. But obviously, that kind of culture promotes living more for. More confident and more established individuals compared to, let's say, people that are worse off in life. That's always a downside. Like, let's say in another country, there's a better sense of community or a better sense of how your next door neighbor is doing, or whether they're happy or whatever. So I lived in Spain, and I spent most of my time in Valencia.
Where is that for reference?
It's on the east side, the east coast. It's a beautiful city. There's like
Catalonia or no?
no, it's like below Catalonia. So they have their own dialect, but most people do speak Spanish compared to Catalonia, where most people speak Catalan.
Ah.
But they do have a very much of a village mindset. So the Spanish people operate in groups, and they're not very prone of outsiders. So they don't really speak English. And also when they travel abroad, so like I talked to a taxi driver, he went to Thailand, for example, but he did go with his Spanish friends.
Mm-hmm.
So Spanish people, at least from Valencia, are not too interested in blending that much.
Interesting.
But they are very interested in how their good friends are doing, and the culture promotes celebration and happiness and.
People, I've
Taking it
never been
easy.
to Europe. I've never been to, so
You should,
obviously,
man.
I know, I do
You
know
should.
this.
You have so much cultural heritage in the States.
Yeah, jeez, I know, I do know this. I'll go ASAP. We'll say
Yeah,
this. My
yeah.
next trip for fun will be to Europe for sure. But for those people who have been to Spain, and especially Barcelona, I guess, I mean, it's just a big tourist city, so
Yeah, it's
of
different.
course a lot of people go
Yeah.
there, right? But I haven't heard anything bad. Except
Right.
the one bad thing I've heard is there's too many tourists. That's the only
Yeah.
bad thing I've heard about Spain.
But there's a big difference between spending a couple weeks, couple days, or a couple months in the city compared to living there for more than a year.
Yeah.
Because you experience a lot of different things that you don't necessarily see as an issue or as an obstacle if you're only there for a couple days. Because if you're only visiting a city for a couple days, all you need is a bed.
It's not going to get that bad.
An
You just
experience,
look at
yeah.
stuff and then you can leave. Yeah.
It's funny actually, because the first time I came to Barcelona, I was aware of the news, and the news basically at that point was saying that Barcelona was like the pickpocket
Oh.
city of the world.
Oh, cool.
And I was putting up with my backpack from the airport, and the moment I was walking through the city, I was like looking over my shoulder, like basically every second,
Yeah.
looking from which direction the pickpocketer
Yeah,
would like
yeah,
try to
yeah.
jump me.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're like obviously not
Yeah.
Spanish, like obviously a guy to
Yeah.
rob.
But I didn't look very fortunate or rich either, so well,
That helps. So
nothing happened.
be a little bit homeless looking when you go to
it helps,
we'll go to
it helps,
Barcelona.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the message.
It's a cool city, beautiful architecture, nice people, nice food, but totally different from Valencia, completely different. Barcelona is not the capital, yet it is the most international city in Spain.
It's kind of a cultural capital in some ways,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there's kind of two capitals, right?
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
some ways.
yeah.
You've been to a lot of other countries. Is there any other one that stands out to you as being like really cool? Like somewhere you're like, that place was awesome.
I think it's all pros and cons in the end. I mean, I had awesome experiences in so many places, and I think actually most of the times it really depends on the people you run into or you tend to meet.
Definitely.
'Cause
But
there's-
there's also vibes. So I feel like you can judge a city somehow through, let's say, like let's pretend you go there by yourself and you walk around by yourself and you don't meet anyone.
Yeah.
You're gonna have actually different experiences even
Yeah,
then
yeah.
in different places.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But then you're more likely to get pickpocketed in Barcelona than Taipei.
Yeah.
Right? So like
Definitely.
even because you do meet people and you do
Yeah.
run into things,
Yeah.
and so the city will inform your. So there's
Yeah.
nice cities to visit and there's not nice cities to visit. There's definitely places that are not nice, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I spent more time than most people would at a certain city, and I always had very mixed experiences.
Okay.
I was living in Berlin for 7 months, and I didn't do a lot of research when it came to the area I would move to. So we moved to an area, and it was mostly immigrants, so there's nothing off or wrong with immigrants. But the vibe in that area was completely different from the vibe in the city center.
Okay.
So Germany has a very big Turkish population. So one of my best friends is Turkish-German. But the people in the area were a bit aggressive to an extent towards one another. So there was a bit of tension.
What, like fights, or you just
not-
a vibe you could feel?
Yeah,
or?
like the next neighbor who had people shot in the nighttime, but it wasn't that extreme like all the time. But there was just aggression and
I see.
a certain, I don't know, let's say non-openness compared to the other parts of Berlin, because Berlin is known to be a very open-minded city. You can
I have heard,
have
yeah.
very crazy experiences there, which I am not necessarily interested in. And for example,
But one could. I mean, the club scene is famous, right? Like people go there for the clubs.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of things that you can do that is basically impossible in most places, like 99% of the world, basically. But the area was so significantly different than the city center. So every time I would go to the city center just to have some food, I'd be greeted by smiley, warm-hearted people. And then we'd go back to my neighborhood, and everybody would just be looking angry and kind of like trying to dominate.
That's what I'm saying. It does make a difference. But you're also making a point about traveling, which is totally true, and which I've made on this podcast several times, which is like, so I think you could draw an analogy to nature, right? So if you like look at a mountain, right? There's like it's like a huge forest, and it's awesome. And to look at that over time, things change, and that's crazy. And you could even zoom out and look at the whole Earth's ecosystem, a local ecosystem, whatever. But you can zoom in on that mountain as much as you want, and you'll never run out of detail. Like there's always another fascinating level of detail when you look at like this part of the mountain, when you look at this tree, when you look at this leaf, when you look at this cell. Like it's all.
You gotta be interested.
Yeah, but so traveling or being in a country is sort of the same thing, right? There are definitely different vibes you'll get. Like this part of the mountain has this kind of tree, and this one has this kind of tree. But like no one is going to have the same experience. Because most of what you experience in a country is yourself. That's most of what you bring to the place, right? And then you just get some different feedback you're maybe not used to, right? But it depends what part of the town are you staying in, like how do you feel that day, like what kind of food are you eating, do you know friends, who are they, who are you traveling with, if anyone, like it all matters.
Yeah, of course, there's so many elements to it, definitely. And I think one of the best things about traveling is arriving in a new country, being all excited and being super interested in everything that is basically happening. But it's kind of like...
Because it really like turns on your senses, right? Because it's so much novelty. And you, maybe you're anxious, maybe not. Normally I'm a little bit, you're like anxious or excited, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen in some places, right? And so that just tunes you into everything.
That really sucks you in to a degree, and that's amazing. It's cool.
And it is also cool to see people's experience. I've had the pleasure of taking one friend from Taipei back to my hometown, right?
Cool.
But I've also seen tourists come to the States, right, or come to my hometown, or especially exchange students is mostly what we'd have, right? So you'd have some guy from France, he's never been to the States, he lands here, and they're sort of their perception of America. A lot of it is based on what they expect it to be versus what it is. Like, it's not like Miami beach parties, which is what people think America, and it's like some town, with like some deers, but it's cool, all of the things that you're used to. So like my friend who came back to the States with me 2 summers ago, she was shocked. We have street lights, and they're like a little bit different than Taipei. They're like, there's like a wire that runs across the street, and it's hanging in the middle of the street. And I would never think that's that crazy. And she was like, she like took pictures, you know, like these traffic lights are crazy.
That's cool. Actually, for Dutch people, that is very unusual to have power lines. It's funny because in Belgium they all have that. They have their telephone communication lines hanging on the street. In the Netherlands, we all hide them under the ground, so they're very much invisible. And then in Spain, they put them on the building. So it's all very different, and it's very cool to.
And it's like you would never think like, does that matter? But like you see those, you notice those things when you go to different places.
It just feels very different the moment you walk in, and it just feels so. Either. Like I don't want to put an emotion on it, but it just feels so different.
Okay, it can be emotional because it can be like shocking a little bit, and then you never think about power lines. And then that's power line is a different power line, and then you think about power lines, which you've never thought of before.
Yeah, it was funny. I actually graduated as an electrical engineer.
Oh, for real? I didn't know that.
And then I went to Thailand, and in Thailand they literally put like a metal, what do you call those things? Put the steps in it.
What? A metal stairs?
No. To climb on something.
A ladder.
Exactly. Ladder. Yeah, I lost the word. So this guy literally put his metal ladder against the power lines, and he was fixing something, and it looked so incredibly dangerous to me. Like I literally thought that he was like a split second away from losing his life if he would like connect the wrong wires or if something would happen. And it's probably true to a degree because human life, and sad as it is less has less worth than it has in. Very developed countries like the Netherlands, America, maybe.
And you die really easy. We're very fragile. Especially with electricity.
And that makes you feel so different because like the worth of the value of human life, for one, is completely different. And when you look at those power lines, you just kind of imagine that, I don't know, it's a different standard. different way of
That's
living.
super true. In China, the biggest thing, and I'm sure you've seen this in a lot of places in Asia
Yeah.
that you wouldn't see anywhere else, is, well, maintenance.
Yeah.
Because maintenance can be dangerous if you do it wrong.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is, so in China, there's skyscrapers everywhere.
Yeah.
Like every building is 30 stories.
Yeah.
Like I think literally in Guangzhou, so in Taipei, there's like sort of minimum standard, I think, for the building is like 6 stories. This one is actually 4, which is, but most of them are like 6 stories minimum, right?
Uh-huh.
And in China, like any new construction is 30 stories minimum. In Guangzhou anyway, where I was.
Jesus,
So,
wow.
so it would be like 30 stories and above essentially.
Yeah.
Whereas in Taipei, like any 30-story building is rare. That's
Yeah.
that's a tall
Yeah, yeah,
building.
yeah,
Like
that's a
this
tall
is
building.
maybe half that, you know.
Yeah, maybe 15, but
Yeah, and but so people, there's still it's a big hive of maintenance you have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the ACs that are different in every unit and on the outside of buildings,
Yeah.
sometimes not so accessible, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be installing a new washer, or someone's lifting a piano or whatever, and or window washing, and you'll see these guys just on the building, just on the side, just hanging out. They don't have like sometimes they have like a rope tied around their waist, sometimes they don't. They're just
Yeah.
like fixing stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone's seen this on YouTube, but it is shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Just the value of life is completely different. There was an accident in my province, and the direction of the power plant went to court, and they got serious punishment. I don't remember what came out of it, but it was just an accident that actually barely happened on their watch. So the individual workers basically made their own mistake, but the chain of responsibility is put in place in order to have a system that prevents any accidents at any point.
You'd say in Netherlands.
Yeah.
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 And if there is an accident, it's very rare.
Yeah.
And it gets huge publicity,
Yeah.
and probably will change the system
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I just read an article. There was, I don't know if it was Walmart or what, but there was a employee with Down syndrome who worked at this place in the States that was fired, and a court just awarded them, I think, $125 million, if I'm not
Wow.
wrong. So this talks about the difference in human life,
Yeah.
right? Where in one place it's like, geez, I hope they don't die because I'll have to
Yeah.
find another employee,
Yeah.
right? And in the other case, like, no, like every person, like you can't treat people differently.
Right.
Like every person has like ultimate human value.
Yeah, but that's the funny thing about the States, man. You guys are all about suing and making money.
We do love
and,
to sue. That's true. I think awarding anyone that much money for anything
I don't know.
is overkill.
I don't get it.
Granted, right?
There's like no way that my European soul can relate to your system whatsoever.
No. I mean, I think it's horrible. I
Yeah.
think it's horrible. I was sued a couple years ago by a woman that I lived with a little bit who had mental illness. I was
wow.
in a flat share, and
Okay.
there's this woman in Taipei, and she sued everyone, the landlord, other.
Oh, so you got sued in
tenants.
Taiwan?
In
Taipei?
Taiwan, yeah,
Okay, right.
in Taiwan, exactly,
Right.
yeah. And the litigation. I mean, ultimately,
Well, you're
it was-
American, so.
which is cool. It's pretty cool, actually, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything wrong. And she right. I mean, bless her heart. I really hope the best for the lady, But essentially, she had mental illness, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she had no basis for anything, and
Right.
she just sued. She found out at some point, I guess, in her life that that's an option to get attention.
Yeah.
That you can sue someone, and
Yeah.
then they have to do this stuff, and so she just sues everyone. That's just her
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And being around this influence of someone who just sues randomly because she doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I wasn't, like, scared at any point. Nothing's going to happen to me. But it's still a stressful thing,
Yeah.
Like, if you've never been sued before. Maybe
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
are
yeah.
all the time, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I going to get deported? Or
Just another
what's
thing,
going to
yeah.
happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, that really did give me an appreciation for, like, how horrible it is,
Yeah.
right? Or,
Yeah.
or there's lawyers on TikTok. So I like TikTok, right? And I've seen lawyers in America who give advice about how to sue people. They'll be like,
Yeah.
if you trip on this kind of thing,
Yeah.
and it has this thing, you can sue this person
Yeah.
because of this legal loophole.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it
It's really
becomes-
disgusting.
It becomes like a circle, right? Like the system produces.
But it ruins people's
More
lives,
of
know?
the
It's like the end result if someone
system.
if someone gets found guilty, it ruins their life.
Yeah.
But people go bankrupt if they have to
Yeah.
pay it. People
Yeah.
lose their jobs. People lose sleep. They lose
Yeah.
relationships. I mean, it
Yeah.
ruins people's lives.
Yeah.
And people do this. I mean, to make money. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
ruins this. Plus, it adds this element to the culture
Yeah.
where everyone expects to be sued.
Yeah.
So you have to do all of these. You have to walk on eggshells
Yeah.
everywhere you go.
Yeah, yeah,
you don't
yeah.
want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to like have the wrong motion, the wrong
Yeah.
thing, because you can be sued for everything. Because people sue people for everything.
Yeah.
Which
yeah, yeah,
it just
yeah.
makes a much more kind of aggressive culture. Like
I
it's,
see.
you have to be
Yeah.
careful. It's
Yeah,
not so
yeah,
open. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And especially now, when you can fake the evidence with your smartphone, it's even more tricky because you can tell one side of the story and actually submit proof to one side of the story.
True.
And if you're doing a good job, you completely block out the other side of the story because you leave the person with no evidence, and that makes for some really tricky situations.
True.
Um,
I will say about litigation, I saw a little, I think, Vice documentary about the Taliban in Afghanistan,
oh yeah?
and I would prefer our legal system
Oh yeah.
to some others. You know, I would I
Yeah.
prefer this extreme where everyone gets listened to
Another Sharia law
until-
where your hand gets chopped off
for
or
a
something.
rumor. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, but I don't know. Looking at the best potential outcome, I think everybody will, or everything will get balanced out to some degree in the end, and that's the best we can hope for. But there's a lot of things wrong with the world and with the society we live in, and there's many things, good things and bad things to be said about every culture. There's not a single culture that's perfect, and yeah.
talking about countries again, is there anywhere else? I guess two different questions. Anywhere else that you would want to live in the future, or anywhere you really want to visit, like on your bucket list?
I really want to visit South America. I think Asia is amazing. This is my third time in Asia, and every time I've spent multiple months in Asia. I love Asia. Love the food, love the people, love the weather, love the nature. There's a lot of awesome things about it. The culture is a really big one that's very unique compared to other continents. But one thing I do feel to an extent deprived of is an abundance of emotions.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
But I would like to hit up South America. I actually lived in Spain
Actually,
for 2 years.
they have more emotions there. I feel
Yeah.
like they got more.
They're more attracted to drama. That's maybe a bit of a negative because they live for the moment of the emotion. That could be a negative. But I just feel like it would be nice to change it up. But right now we're still in Corona times and we're still limited in our options. So I think it could be a next destination I'm interested in going to, but I'm not necessarily jumping towards the opportunity to like.
Right, but you're
board the next
drawn like
plane.
it could
Yeah.
be cool.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, I think it'd be a nice culture because I think one of the biggest privileges I got to experience, in contrast to people that have a very solid and stable life in the Netherlands, is I got to learn so much about other countries, other cultures, other people, other backgrounds, other religions, and the list keeps on going. Because in any place you spend significant time, you pick up little pieces and bits, and you get influenced in a good way. Because I don't know if you would agree, but I feel that to at least the people that are interested in blending together, you get a lot more benefits out of hanging out with people from other backgrounds and other cultures
Yeah.
in other countries than you get than just sticking to your solid social circle in your home country.
Definitely.
Like it's good to balance it out, of course, as well. But yeah, like
Do
those
you hang out with any? I guess you have 18 million Dutch people in the world, so it's harder to find.
yeah.
Do you know any other Dutch people here,
It's
or have
funny
you, have
because
you met
we-
any abroad?
It's funny because we used to be everywhere.
Huh.
I used to travel and I used to run into Dutch people all the time, but ever since Corona became a thing, I haven't met a single one. It's funny, but I guess they're somewhere still. But
yeah.
I haven't met any here. Let me think. I think there's actually one Dutch guy I kind of ran in a couple months ago, but yeah, that's it. Just
Okay.
one person. And actually, it's funny because a lot of Dutch people have their thing in Taiwan as well. But the thing is, before Corona times, people would come in all the time, right? They would come and they would leave
Yep.
all the time. And ever since Corona started,
For like business or tourism,
yeah, for
just
many
hanging
reasons.
out.
Yeah, for all kinds of reasons. And ever since the epidemic became a thing in our vision, that hasn't been happening as frequent as it was before, which to an extent is quite interesting because, yeah, the volume of new people moving through Taiwan is significantly lower than it was before pandemic
True.
times. Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people have left and
Yeah.
they can't get back
Yeah,
in.
and you're leaving as well.
True. Yeah. True. This will probably be my last interview before
Yeah.
I take off. In South America, just curious, is there any particular place that sort of sparks your interest, or just have a general sort of interest to the place? What
It's
do you
hard
want
to say? I feel like so tying into the stereotype that people develop of other cultures or other nations. People in the Netherlands tend to think that Asian people are very similar to one another, and to an extent, of course, that is true. But then, once you have spent significant time in Asian countries, you start to see the profound differences between cultures and languages and people. And I think it's the same in South America, because they do speak the same language, which probably unifies them more than Asian
I
countries.
think so. I think that does help a lot.
So they are a lot more similar to one another than other people, because they speak the same language. So
and I've always got the feeling, I've actually asked people about this, and I think it has some truth to it, that that Brazilian people feel left out of the South American experience, exactly for that reason, because they all got one language, except one.
But then again, I think Brazilians and like the rest of South America is, to an extent, is pretty similar.
It is the big country of South America, so they're not losing out on much, maybe.
I feel like Brazil is amazing for certain experiences, whether that's nature or whether that's the people or whether that's let's say the beaches. But I do think that I'm more gravitated towards maybe Middle America and then I guess Argentina nowadays. I think Colombia or something would be a thing that would draw me in when I was younger, but nowadays I think I'm more gravitated towards Argentina, because supposedly there's more Western influence, which is very interesting as well, because that becomes kind of like a remix between the West and what is it, the South?
Well, I think it's something so interesting is like the Americas have maybe 2 major languages and 2 minor languages, right?
Yeah.
English, Spanish, and then maybe some French and maybe some Portuguese, right? For Brazil, right?
Yeah.
They're all European languages from like a small area.
Yeah.
Right? So like it's already been remixed. It's already super remixed.
Yeah, that's cool.
You might get further remixing, but like it's already European.
I lived in Spain and I speak some Spanish, but I like the South American Spanish much more than the Spanish. It's more there's more soul to it, there's more music to it, whereas like the Spanish have these weird like tones.
They do.
It's like a snake.
Yeah.
Making some weird noise. And some weird as well, like a very strong. And I like the tones that they use in South America much more. And then they do have very different dialects, like in Colombia, the Spanish they speak, and compared with the Argentinian Spanish or the Chilean Spanish is quite different. I think it's just amazing to have an entire new continent at your disposal and to experience the ins and outs of it. But then again, I'm also a bit fearful for the future, because I do feel that due to the impact of Corona, a lot of things are going to change and nothing is going to be the same again, ever again.
Yep.
And that's both economically, culturally, and actually, many more factors that come into play are going to be different. And to an extent, that is really sad. But at the same time, let's just look at it as an opportunity to get the most out of it and to
right on.
But crime rates and stuff are definitely rising in places like Venezuela and Colombia.
I mean, in America they're up.
Yeah,
and America is not bad. We pretty much are all open.
Yeah.
Crime rates are still way up.
Yeah, that could be a potential danger, but we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Once you've been in so many countries, I think it becomes easier. And I think I am happy that I went to Asia first, before I went to other places. I went to Athens. I had some shady experiences there. And South America, to a degree, is dangerous, but I think I'm way better equipped now than when I would be when I was 23 and when it would be my first country. Yeah,
you kind of have your head about you a little bit more. Just awareness of things.
Because you know what to pay attention to and what to ignore. There's many people that have bad intentions, and you kind of feel that you should leave them alone. And when I landed in Bangkok for the first time in my life, I was
the opposite. Perfect target.
I was attracted to any potential source of danger, like whether that's street scammers or whatever. Learned a lot, learned a great deal, and that's very awesome about living and spending significant time in other places around the world. And I hope there's many more to come. And I don't know about you. I don't know how you're gonna like the States, but I think to a degree, once you've spent significant time abroad, it's very hard to go back to where you came from.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I've lived in Asia for 9 years, eight or 9 years, 8 years, and and I go back to Michigan every year.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been back for 2 years, but like, mostly
you
every
stay
year.
connected, yeah.
And so I don't like it. It doesn't get better when I go back. I mean, there's some things that's cute. I feel like it's cute. It's like oh,
Yeah.
but like it's essentially everything's the same. I'll go to the same like restaurant, that I liked, when I was in high school, and it's like it's kind of it's nice, but it's not exciting. It's not interesting. I'm not going to learn something new. In fact, I think the new thing to learn is just maybe it's interesting to see how you actually learn how you've changed by going back, right? And you see how like because that is more obviously things change over time, right? But it's more static than your experiences in traveling, of course, right? And so you get to it can be kind of a mirror for you to kind of reflect or a gauge, a measuring stick to see where have you come and even how can you better deal with the things that maybe annoyed you in the past or the people or something. So.
There's definitely a lot of lessons to learn outside of your own place. You definitely bring different perceptions back to the place you come from. So that's cool. I'm just really curious how you'll feel like once you're like 6 months in, if you manage to stick around for that long.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say is we'll see.
Yeah, nothing is defined, right? But
I mean, I have a few months there, and I can see it. I don't expect anything to go well. I expect a steaming train wreck.
Yeah.
And so if that doesn't happen, it'll be nice. You know, I'm obviously going to try to live my best life, live things to the fullest, see how, the connections I can make, the friends I can make, see how much I can blend in and assimilate as quick as possible. So but if none of it works, I'm not going to be surprised.
So how big is your area as in terms of population? And,
it's like 250,000, a 250,000. So 10 times smaller than Taipei in the sort of city proper, and then about twice that in the kind of the outskirts. And it's the biggest city for several hours of driving. I mean, like Detroit's 3 hours away, Chicago's 3 hours away. Those would be the bigger cities around.
Right.
But yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
My province, I think, is literally so. Like, I grew up in a village that was like 5,000 people, and then I'm like in between.
Grand Rapids is not 5,000. That is, it is. Yeah, it's different.
So the village is in between two cities. So one city is like 25K, and then the other city is like 23K or something.
So you like go into town to the 25,000 place. Yeah. Like have your fun in the 25,000 one. Yeah.
So everybody to a degree knows each other.
Sure.
Like, It's a very.
I mean, if you lived in that town and you grew up there, you would probably literally know all 5,000 people. There's like a new baby, and you see, hey, there's a new baby.
Only that town, yeah. But obviously, it's a bit more mixed than that because now I'm only taking like a little piece, and there's other places around it.
I see.
The difference between, especially the Netherlands and America, is that like cities and villages are way closer to one another. Compared to, I guess, America, where the cities are
they can
like
be really
5 hours distance in between. Yeah, bro, I'm actually a bit hungry.
All right, good stuff.